Well, YouTube, like I said in a previous video, this car is not very fast, and I've got all the parts necessary to make it fast, so I think I'm going to go ahead and get started on that now. I've got 416 miles now on the FP Red. I mentioned before it's maybe making around 280 wheel horsepower, maybe 275-ish by guesstimation, and it's pretty slow. What I'm going to do is upgrade the fuel system. I've got all the parts. I got the fuel pump, I've got the fuel rail, and the fuel injectors. And I'm going to run E85, and when I get all these parts installed, it will be dynoed, so I'll have all that taken care of. The goal, 450 horsepower. So today I'm going to go ahead and get started on the fuel pump. Let's go ahead and get started on that right now. Alright, I'm here on the passenger side in the rear, and let me get a light on here, see if we can't. What you got to do to remove your back seat is there's a couple of clips. I'm sure this has been shown in other videos, but I'm going to go ahead and show it in mine since mine's kind of a how-to. There are these little clips. See if I can get my finger in there. There it is. Where's my hand at? There it is. You got to pull these little tabs out right here, and then you can remove the seat. So you got to pull on that hook, and there's one on this side and one on the driver's side. Pull that hook, it will come out. Let's go ahead and get this out. To make it a little bit easier, as you're pulling on that tab, lift up on the seat at the same time to help pop it loose. Mine is loose. There we go. Alright, let's get this out of here. Here is that tab, and here's the tab in relation to the back seat and whatnot. This is what you pull on. You just pull it out like that, and you can see there's a little clip in there. I need to pull that back far enough to release on this metal clip right here. Pull that out, lift up, it will pop loose. Found a quarter on the back seat. Making money moves. Alright, to get this cover off, it's going to be 4 Phillips heads. This is where the fuel pump is. It's behind the driver's seat. 4 Phillips heads. Let's get those off. Okay, I moved over here to the driver's side. With these 4 screws off, this panel should just come off. Boom. And there you go. There's your fuel pump. Oh boy, this thing's dirty. I believe this is your electrical connector. I believe this is your fuel feed, and I believe these two might be the return. One of these, or they both could be the return. I think they both might be the return. I'm not really sure. If you do know, chime in, but I'm pretty sure this is the feed here. So these have to pop off. Electrical connector's got to come off, and then these little clips right here, you can probably get those off. They look like you could probably use some needle nose pliers or just some cheap, like a cheap wrench or something. Not a wrench, but pliers. Alright, let's get those off. Okay, so I wiped a little bit of this off to clean it up a little bit so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I have the clamp loose here, I believe on the return hose here. Let's see if we can't pop that off. There we go. It's coming. Alright, there you go. One down, a couple more to go. Okay, so this electrical clip is really easy to get off. There is, let me see if I can get some light on that. There you go. There's a little clip right there. You want to push that clip inward and then pull up. So push in, pull up. That'll get that taken care of. I just got to get this one off and this one off. These look like you have to, if I'm not mistaken, looks like you got to push in on the side here. Push in on the side right there, and then push in, of course, on the other side over here, and that should get that off. Let's give that a shot real quick, see if it works. So squeeze the sides and pull. There we go. Oops. Yep. Some fuel's coming out. Obviously, that's your fuel feed. No pressure on it, obviously. Maybe a little tidbit I didn't go over first. Make sure there's no pressure in the line. What you can do is you can pull this connector off, which this is what feeds your fuel pump electrical power, and then try to start the car. It'll help pull some of that pressure out of the line if there's pressure in here. Good little tidbit for you. Now that this one is off, we just have this last one here to do. It's going to be the same removal, push in on these clips on the side and then pull back. Okay, now that I have this siphon connector off, we can go ahead and remove these nuts here. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to remove. And the size for these nuts is an 8mm, so you can use an 8mm to get these off. Let's go ahead and do it. Alright, there's one. Do that 5 more times. Alright, now that all 6 nuts are removed, you got to remove the metal ring here. This might be a little tricky. We might have to move a little bit of stuff around here, but let's see if we can't. See if we can't do that here. I might need to put the camera down in order to do this. Oh boy. Yeah, this might be a little too tricky. Can't do it with one hand. Alright, I was able to get the ring out. One of the key things that I needed to do was that I needed to make sure that this fuel hose was tucked back down underneath this trim plate as I was trying to take it out. Let me back up here. I had to make sure this fuel line was tucked back while I was trying to pull this trim plate up, because if the fuel line is on top here, same with this electrical connector, if it's over the top you can't get it out, so I had to try to find a way to stuff this fuel line and the line that connects to this down underneath this metal ring. Made it so much simpler. It is a puzzle. Obviously it does come out, but it's a puzzle. Just be patient with it. It will come out. Now that that's out of the way, we can go ahead and we can try to remove our pump assembly. Oh boy. You know, I thought this thing was almost out of gas. It was saying there was maybe a quarter of a tank or a little less than a quarter of a tank, but it almost seems like this thing is full. All right, I'm gonna put the camera down while I take this out of here. All right, and there you have it. It's out. When removing it, you're gonna have to kind of finagle it sideways and, you know, work it around and keep an eye on your float here. You don't want to damage that. So that's the only thing to really keep an eye on as you're taking this out. Now this pump here should be a 255 according to the previous owner. Let's get it over onto the workbench and see what we got. Oh, is there a clip? No, there's a clip on the back side too, so get that one as well. There we go. Now it'll come off. And let's not lose our little rubber grommet here. We might need that. Got ahead of myself and I made a boo-boo. As I was pulling the pump out, you got to pull the pump out a little bit in order to get to this connector. But as I was pulling it out, the wires came out of that clip. Okay, now that we have the fuel pump assembly out, we have to make a couple of modifications to it so that we can actually fit the 450 pump, because it's dimensionally larger than the old 255 pump here. I'll show you what I mean. Here is a legitimate Walbro 450 pump. I picked this up from STM, and this is what the box looks like. There's some counterfeit boxes out there. I guess they say Walbro on it all over the place. Those are probably counterfeit. From what I've researched, the legitimate Walbros just come in kind of a plain white box with a sticker on it. It does come in a plastic bag, which I've removed already. And this is what the pump looks like, or should look like, when you take it out. TI Automotive. There you go. As you can see, the feed here, I've got them both at approximately the same down here. But you can see up here that the feed is longer than the 255. This is a Walbro GSS 342 or a 255 pump. So we actually need to modify this pump to get it to fit into this housing. Otherwise, the pump sticks out too far and you can't put the cap on. So we're going to have to modify this, and I'll show you how to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a razor blade. I'm going to trim off this portion here. I don't know, I guess it's kind of like a double lip. I'm just going to trim off this first bit here. Now I want to use a razor blade. You don't want to really use a saw or a Dremel or anything like that, because what can happen is the little plastic pieces can find their way down into the pump, and then when you fire up this pump, you're going to have a bunch of plastic and everything going into your fuel rail, fuel injectors, whatnot, possibly clog them up. So we're going to use this, and we're just going to kind of slice through it. We'll just go around the outside here and we'll score it until we get all the way through. And when you are finished, it will look like that. And this is the piece that we cut off the top. Like so. Boom. Now it more closely matches the top of this one, of the old 255. We'll go ahead and cut this connector off. We don't need this. There we go. What we're actually going to do is we're going to strip these wires and we're going to solder it to the factory wiring harness. I'll show that later. Next thing you want to do is remove this little metal piece that holds the filter onto the bottom of the old pump. I just used a flat-headed screwdriver, so that will come off. And then this should come right off. There we go. Alright, the next modification we actually have to make to the pump housing itself. The plastic portion here, what you're going to want to do is, it's probably going to be easier if you have a Dremel, but you can probably use a hacksaw. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut off this plastic piece here all the way around, and you're going to want to cut it off right at this nub here, and of course this one here, and then one on the other side. But you're going to want to make a circle all the way around, so you're going to cut off this portion here all the way around, and that will allow the pump then to sit deep enough into the housing, which will allow you to put this factory clip on the bottom to actually hold the pump in place. Without it, with this plastic piece here, you won't be able to fit this on, because the 450 is deeper, it sits deeper or down this way versus the 255. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put some tape over your fuel ports here so you don't get any plastic shavings into these ports. And you're going to want to do one here in the bottom as well. You're going to want to put some newspaper or some tape down in that port right down there, because that actually goes into your fuel filter. So let's get some tape on that. I've already got tape on a couple pieces here. I'll finish buttoning up with tape, and then we'll go ahead and we'll cut this. What I'm going to use is, I have a Dremel, and I went down and I just picked up some cutoff wheels here. These are more durable than your cheaper ones. Dremel makes a couple of different kinds. These are the reinforced cutoff wheels. I've used the cheaper ones before. They're really thin. If you don't have a, if you're not following a perfectly straight line, they will snap off. These reinforced ones will not. I don't feel like swapping out 500 blades just to trim a little plastic. Now granted, it is plastic, it's probably very soft, but I hate dealing with it, so I'm just going to go with the reinforced ones. You can see it produces a lot of tiny plastic particles. That's why you put the tape on everything, so you don't get that up into the pump. Okay guys, now that the pump housing has been modified, what we need to do now is we have to solder some wires here for the pump. What we have to do is we have to cut the factory harness and we have to solder the wires. So what you're going to do is cut these, and you want to solder the blue wire to the red wire and the black wire, of course, to the black wire. This is a connector that actually goes into the pump housing, so we need to save this portion of it, and we're going to get rid of this portion down here. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we have our pump wires stripped, and we have the harness wires stripped and cut back. Now before you solder, you're going to want to make sure you get your heat shrink on. I do have it on here already. You can't really see it. But once you have your soldering iron hot, let's go ahead and try to solder this. See how this goes. Get a little bit of heat into the wires first, see if this works. Alright, when you've got a good solder, you go ahead and put your heat shrink over, give it a little bit of heat. Alright guys, we're pretty much done with this. All I need to do now really is just install it into the housing. Now, I did modify the old housing. I was using that to practice, and the reason for that is I went out to Mitsubishi and I got myself a brand new housing, new filter. I figured the factory filter, this is actually your filter right here in this, and it's contained, it's not replaceable. And I figured since the factory filter has about 109,000 miles on it, it's time for a change. I went out and bought a brand new fuel pump assembly, and that's what that looks like. We'll go ahead and we'll install the pump into this now, and we can go ahead and get it back in the car. Let's reattach the pre-filter. or the pre-screen onto the pump. Make sure you don't forget your factory grommet that goes on the top of the pump. Now what I did is I put 2 O-rings on my pump here to kind of give this factory O-ring rubber grommet a little bit more support when it's on there. So when I push this up in there, it doesn't want to push too far. There we go. Hopefully that'll work. Okay, I wanted to show you guys one final thing before I throw this back in the car. This is the factory bottom piece here for the pump housing. When you go to put this on, it's not going to go on all the way. The base of the 450 pump is wider than the 255, so these actually get, when you go to put this on, these actually get spread out. They don't want to sit on, it doesn't want to sit on the housing very well. What you're going to have to do is probably use a worm clamp or, you know, a couple of zip ties or something. When I put this on, I'll show you what I mean. Okay guys, here's what I mean by these clips not coming down. It's kind of stretched. I can get 2 of the clips, try to focus here, try to get 2 of the clips on here, and I can get 2, but it's just stretched out because this pump is so wide here. I'm going to put a zip tie around this. You can probably use a worm clamp if you have one of those. I'm just going to use a couple zip ties. Okay guys, there's my zip clamp, or my zip tie. So now she's all set. She's ready to go back in the car. I'm not going to show the video of me reinstalling it. I probably will have a fire up video just to make sure it works. I'm going to test it out. I'm going to plug everything in. I'm going to make sure that the pump actually turns on, and before I button it all up. I would recommend doing that too. I hope this video helped. I'll have more videos in the future. Stay tuned guys, and thank you very much.